Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here on This Is Just the Beginning. I'm your host Ellie and I hope you're having a fab day. Today I kind of wanted to talk about the whole Christmas time with eating disorders and those who may have just disordered eating, etc. and think that there's a certain way to eat, certain foods to eat, and basically the whole guilt around eating, especially at Christmas. And so I just want to get straight into the episode because this is something that's been on my mind a lot as someone who is still in eating disorder recovery. And I kind of think the first thing to say is that you are not going to be fully recovered for a long time and possibly your whole life. And that is a very scary thing. And the past kind of few months, I've been thinking about that a lot and thinking, why do I still have bad days? Why do I still have relapses? I've not even been in recovery for 2 years yet. And I think that I should be fully recovered by now because most of the time I am great and I feel pretty amazing. But then some days I do have those bad days and my mind is still, like that voice in my head is still going, no Ellie, restrict, do this, do that. And I just get so wound up about that because I think, no, I should be recovered right now. But today I want to talk about everything kind of behind that and how you can focus on recovering and still having a good time at Christmas time. I'm going to start off by kind of talking about my story with Christmas time in particular, with my whole anorexia story. Basically, I was diagnosed with anorexia in 2021, but I had it and had all the symptoms and everything of it in 2019, and especially with COVID and the lockdown just made it even worse. And it did kind of start out of just exercise addiction, and I've talked about my story a lot, but I just thought I'd kind of fill you in with some things here. Since the age of 12, when I started high school, I was just in sport every single day. I was doing hockey, dance every single day. And so those days that I had time off at age of 12 to 14, I had a day off, sure, and I'd eat pizza and I just, you know what I mean, I was a kid, so I'd still eat, I'd still do all these things. But all my kind of life I've been a grazer and I just kind of eat snacks here and there. I never liked a big meal. And I got that habit definitely from my mum, who always kind of just grazed, same as my nan. So, and then at the age of 14 was when I started going to the gym. And I was progressing with my hockey, so I was doing even more training, still doing dance, although I was kind of not enjoying dance as much because I did it at school and those people dropped out and there was just a few of us left and it just wasn't the best environment, but I love dance still, so I still did it. But I was doing more and more hockey. I joined the gym as well. So on a Saturday, for example, I played hockey for school for eventually the first team, but I mean when I was younger, I played hockey for school on a Saturday, so a match, and then I did club hockey as well. But most of the time I did 2 matches for club hockey on a Saturday as well as my school match because they needed more people to play for club. So I was like, yeah, I'll play in the lower team or whatever. I was just so knackered every single Saturday, right? And I would go to the gym first thing. If I didn't have an early match, I'd go to the gym with my mum. I'd do an hour-long gym class. If you've done Les Mills gym classes, you'll know Body Attack. That was back when it was an hour. I think they've all reduced the class times now, but yeah. If you know anything about gym classes, this was a HIIT class, non-stop, an hour long, torture. I hated it every single time, but I loved it because, again, I loved going to the gym, I loved doing exercise. And then I'd go do 3 hockey matches afterwards, or it was at least 2 every Saturday, but sometimes it was 3. I'd have another hockey match in the week, plus 3 or 4 training sessions, and I just always thought I had to be doing sport. And I think from there, in the summer after that year, when obviously it wasn't hockey season anymore, I would be doing a lot of exercise. I'd be getting up early before school. And then in 2019, that was when it really started, and I was getting up early before school every single day into 2020, into COVID, and it just basically plummeted straight away in COVID. And it got very, very bad, especially with social media and body image, body dysmorphia. You remember when TikTok first came about and the algorithm was literally just favouring pretty blonde girls? Well, not just blonde, but just pretty skinny girls. If you remember that, yeah, I remember that too. And it's going back that way. I've realised on my TikTok now it is going back to that point and I hate it. Why is that still the thing? But anyway, that's what I was consuming every day because I first got into TikTok kind of just before lockdown, and all I was consuming was that. And it was just always playing on my mind, why am I not skinny? Why am I not that kind of shape? And I just started really hating my body as well. In 2019 was when I was 16 and my body finally changed into a woman's body because I still had that kind of rectangular 12-year-old's body. I had abs, I had everything, and then age of 16 I started developed like my boobs, my hips, my bum, and I was like, why am I bigger? I hated it, and things weren't fitting properly, and I wasn't gaining weight, my body was just changing, and I hated it. So then I was like, no, I need to lose it, and I did. And yeah, that's kind of like the backstory to it. And I went to uni in 2021 in the September, when I was still like at my worst, and in the summer, like halfway through the summer before uni, I was like, I'm not going to uni. I said to my parents, I was like, there is no way that I can, because at this point I knew I had anorexia, I knew I had to recover, but I was like, I don't want to go. And then it came to A-level results day, and that was just kind of like all thrown in the bin, because I was like, it was so fast paced after that, because that was in the middle of August and I had about a month till I went to uni, and it just kind of was like all on, what's the word, like double speed my whole life, and I just went to uni, and me and my parents never discussed it again. Looking back, I should have not gone. Mentally and physically, I was very ill, and because I was at uni, I was alone, I could continue doing my bad habits, even though I say to my mum, yeah, I'm eating. No, I wouldn't. My mum every week would deliver me a food shop, I wouldn't eat it, and I'd just be throwing it away or cooking for other people. And yeah, it got really bad at uni, but then I started recovery in May last year, 2022. Absolutely loved it. I love recovery so much. So if you're kind of in the same stage as me with recovery, I feel like a lot of people don't think it's fun. For me, it is fun, because I'm learning a lot about myself, a lot of how I get triggered, and I get triggered when anything is out of control. Because as I said, lockdown really hit me badly with anorexia, because everything was so out of control and my exams were cancelled. We didn't know when we could see family or friends again. So I've kind of picked up on that, like every time I'm anxious as well, that is when I develop those habits again. And it's just kind of, recovery is so fun to just learn more about yourself. And I don't know about you, it's not fun all the time, especially at the start. It is not fun, trust me. But now that I'm 18 months into it, it's so fun that I get to eat foods I want to again. I'm not saying there's no bad days, of course there is. But here's another reminder that everyone's journey with recovery, or anything to do with that, a life journey, a life path, is so different, and people can recover really quickly. And when I say recover in this context, I mean kind of get past the habits and realign yourself with gym and exercise, realign yourself with food. It's a work in progress all the time, but you know, when you kind of hit that stage where you're not really worried about food anymore, most of the time I mean, and you kind of do gym when you can, like when you get to that stage where you're okay with what happens in the day, you don't care if the routine's kind of skewed a bit, whatever. That's what I mean when you're like recovering, you know what I mean, when you kind of get to that hiatus, I guess, because it does dip after that, but when you get to that like initial high of recovery, it is fun, and you get to eat all the food you want to do. But no, it's very hard, especially when you are kind of like my age and you want to go out and you want to do stuff, and at the start it's so hard to do that, but you do just have to let go. For me, a huge thing is Christmas, because during my dark anorexia days, there were 2 Christmases that were really bad. And I don't know about you, but Christmas Day for us is kind of, we have dinner at my family house here, and my grandparents come over, and we have like Christmas dinner around like 3 o'clock. It used to be 5 o'clock, but I remember the first year, so in 2020, we had like 3 o'clock dinner, and I remember just like stressing out. And that was at the point where people had noticed my behaviours, but no one had really pulled me up on it or anything. And that was kind of like the darkest depths of my ED in kind of like my final year at school. And I was just an absolute bitch the whole day. I didn't want to eat. I remember I was on the treadmill, and my nan came in saying, and I think she had noticed a lot of my behaviours as well, but she came in saying, Ellie, come on, it's Christmas Day, you don't want to be doing a workout. And I was like, oh, I'll only be a minute. And I was on there for an hour and a half on the treadmill, just walking, but that was my thing. I would just walk for an hour and a half at least on the treadmill every day, 5 times a day, and it was just so bad. But I remember my nan coming in and saying that, and she looked so sad because she wanted obviously to spend time with me. And my mum and dad the day before was like, you're not working out tomorrow, it's Christmas. And yeah, and I just felt so, I don't know, just really horrible about that. I had to work out, and yeah, that was like the first time I kind of realised that, even though that was kind of at the start of my ED. But yeah, and then we had dinner at 3 o'clock, I remember, and I was waiting till the very last minute to go sit down and eat, and everyone was like, why are you standing around waiting to eat? And I said to my mum, who kind of did see what was happening at that time, I was like, no, I'm waiting until 3, because it was like 2:57 or something. I was like, I'm waiting until 3, then I'll come in. And it had to be a specific time that I could eat. And if it was going to be early, it had to be the latest it could be, like on the dot of the hour. And I didn't eat a lot, and then afterwards I went to do another workout, and I was just not with my family. So then that's when they kind of understood that something was wrong. The following year, it was kind of the exact same. I didn't eat my dinner. I had like the tiniest bit of food and then didn't eat it. And then afterwards, again, I went to do a workout, and this was when my mum was just really worried about me, because I had to get over it, and I just could not get over it. And then, so that was kind of like the final Christmas with my ED, and it was hard, and there was a lot of screaming matches. And it's kind of funny to think, when you have an ED, when you're like late teens, early 20s, the tantrums you have, because you have, like, you just kind of resort back to like basic instincts in a way, like when you're a baby. That's kind of how I can kind of put it. And I just have tantrums all the time if something wasn't right, because it had to be a particular way, and I'd literally have tantrums. I'd scream and cry and slam doors, and I just, like, I was a child at that time, and it was just very weird to think of how I acted, and it must have been very upsetting for my family members to see. But anyway, last Christmas was my first Christmas in recovery, and I bigged it up for so long. Like, I was writing loads of blog posts. I must have done a podcast as well about it, although to be fair, like, all my thoughts on my eating disorder on my podcast haven't been, like, for the whole time. It's been quite recent, I feel like. It's not been for the whole time I've been doing a podcast. But anyway, and so last Christmas I really wanted it to be a great Christmas where I didn't work out, and I had a lazy day, and I ate chocolate, and I had breakfast, and I still had, like, an early dinner. And it was all fine. And at that point as well, I didn't work out every day. I'd kind of got past that, and because I had a boyfriend at the time as well, and he kind of taught me that you don't have to do exercise every day or every week for that matter. And it was just in my head like, oh my god, I can't do this, because I still had that psychological barrier with Christmas, because my past few Christmases had been awful, and I was remembering them, and I was kind of thinking that I had to still be ill, if you know what I mean. Like, I had to act that way, because that's how that's what I've known for the last few years. And I was fine, like, all day. And then it got to dinner, and I was halfway through eating my dinner, and I just kind of froze, and I, like, ran to the toilet, and I was like, looking in the mirror, I was like, Ellie, get yourself together. You can't be acting like this now. Like, you're 19 years old. I thought you were past this. And I wasn't, and I just felt this just, like, horrible crushing feeling inside me, because I was like, why am I not over this yet? It's been like, I've been in recovery for 8 months. I was like, why am I not okay yet? And it took me a while to kind of realise that recovery is not a linear process, and that it's always going to be really hard a lot of the time, especially with big triggers like Christmas, when everyone else is eating loads and having fun, and I'm there, like, just not wanting to do that, and I want to go back to my old habits. I was at the table, and then I came back and I finished my meal, and my mum and dad knew, like, obviously they can see in my eyes that I was crying, and they knew obviously what it was about. Afterwards, my family leave, and then it's just, like, us 5, like, family members at home, and my grandparents leave. And as soon as they leave, I break down to my mum. And also at this point, I've had a couple glasses of wine as well. I wasn't drunk, but you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't completely sober. But I just break down to her, and she's like, oh, are you okay? Like, I know. And actually, my dad was the same. He did sympathise with me a lot during the time, even though he didn't quite understand it. He still knew when I got really upset. And she just hugged me, like, I was like, why am I still not over it? And then she reminded me that it's a very up and down process, and it's going to be like this for a while, and that did kind of pull me back together. So this year I'm kind of being gentle with myself, because it is that time when there's more chocolate, there's more treats, there's more, like, festive drinks around, and it's winter, so you do just want to eat cheese toasties like me all the time. Like, I want to do that, and it's just, it is really hard sometimes when I start thinking about Christmas, but I'm like, no, this year is going to be a good year. But I think this is my first tip I'm going to give after saying all that. Tip 1 is to remember that it's only one day out of the year. So in that way, you are allowed to eat all those things, because you're not going to gain weight overnight. And I think that's tip number 2, but you're not going to gain weight overnight, right? So why don't you just indulge? And I hate that word, but just allow yourself to eat what you want to eat on Christmas Day. And again, you don't have to eat a huge meal either. You can kind of eat what you want. Don't force yourself to eat more than you can, especially on Christmas. If you want to eat more than you usually do, go for it if you want it to be a challenge. And I think that's tip number 3, challenge yourself, because Christmas is the best time to challenge yourself in recovery, because you have all those like chocolate to eat, you have the lazy days as well. Like, it is a big challenge for a lot of people, and I think as if you think of it as that way, not as in like, oh my god, I'm really gonna struggle, think of it as, no, it's another challenge to face more fear foods, to have Christmas ticked off my list of kind of like triggers and fears. And if you think of it that way, it becomes a lot easier. Tip number 5, I think, don't put pressure on yourself. And I've kind of just said this, but don't put pressure on yourself to eat everything, or to think, oh, I've been 2 years in recovery now, kind of like me, I should be over it now and I should enjoy Christmas instead. Because if you're like me, like, you still might have that psychological block with it, and I hope I'm now not kind of making that happen for you by kind of saying, oh, you will have a psychological block. No, remember, it's different for every single person in recovery, but Christmas was just a big thing for me that it was really hard to deal with. So if you're similar, and you might be, because I know Christmas is a big challenge and it is very scary for a lot of people, don't be so hard on yourself, and just kind of enjoy it, or just try and enjoy it. And if you are finding it really hard, tip number 6, talk to your friends, talk to your family, whoever you trust. It is easier if you're spending Christmas with your family to talk to them. I know that is hard for some people who aren't necessarily that open with their family, and maybe they confide in with a friend or someone else. Just have that one person that you do speak to about it, and just say, if it is with your family and you're sitting with them at dinner, just say, hey, like, if I storm out, if I cry, like, you know why. And that is just very important, to have the support system around this time, because even though it's supposed to be a happy holiday, not everyone enjoys Christmas. Maybe you've lost someone, maybe something happened a few years ago on Christmas. It isn't always a joyous event, so kind of also have that in mind as well. If you think Christmas is supposed to be so fun, like, yeah, it's supposed to be fun and time with friends and family, but not everyone has that same attitude to Christmas, and as well, like, not everyone celebrates Christmas either, so that's also something to keep in mind. Also, tip number 6, I want to say, remember, it's Christmas. Like, I know it's scary and there's loads of fear foods around, but Christmas food is amazing. I love a roast dinner with all my heart, and I just love Christmas dinner. Like, just kind of think about all those things to get excited for Christmas. Think about the presents. I know it's not about the presents, but it is about the presents. Think about the presents. Think about that lazy morning in bed. Well, to be fair, we tend to get up quite early just because we did as a kid, and I still have that. But just kind of think about that, and think about a day in your pyjamas, and Christmas music, and mulled wine, and snowballs, beer, whatever it is. Or if you just want a cup of tea, whatever, you know, it's Christmas, it's fun if you do enjoy it. And I'm not saying that everyone enjoys it, obviously, like, it might be hard for you, but just try and realign it with, it is fun, and hopefully it's gonna snow. I don't think it will, but yeah. And that's why I wanted to do this episode today, a week to go before Christmas, because you might be starting to get anxious about it, you might already be anxious about it, and I think that this will kind of help you just think, okay, everyone does struggle with Christmas when you're in ED recovery, but it's the biggest challenge yet, and that's a good thing. You have to keep challenging yourself throughout the whole of your recovery. Even if you think you've recovered, do another thing to challenge you. Like with me, huge challenges were having lazy days in bed, or wake up late and then go out straight away without having time to do a workout. And as well with my ED, it was very much, it was like restrictive in terms of food, but then also in my routine. Like, I had to have a very planned routine, and the OCD came in through that. Like, I could only eat at a certain time, I could only eat certain foods at a certain time, and it was just all, the whole thing, like, my whole life was restrictive. And I think that is very similar to a lot of people. But that was my biggest challenge, when I didn't have those very planned out days, or when I was with my then boyfriend and I had to have a lazy day, stay in bed till 11 a.m, whereas I'd be up at 7 a.m. every day. But I let myself have those days, I let myself be lazy, and if I didn't want to go to the gym first thing, you can also go to the gym in the afternoon. And that was another thing with me, like, I had to go to the gym first thing if I was going to go. If I didn't, I just feel really weird and lazy, even if I knew I was going to go later. But kind of realigning myself with that by saying, you can do a workout whenever you want, if you want. Because some days I'd wake up, like now, I wake up, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do a workout yet, I'll do one later. But then I get sucked into work, or whatever I'm doing, and then I don't have time to do that. And I think that's still absolutely fine. So I'm going to keep this episode kind of short, and just kind of give you a little reminder that Christmas is fun, and a lot of people, not just people in ED recovery, do feel that guilt after Christmas. And here's another reminder to not listen to what your mums or your aunties or whoever it is or social media. Don't listen to what they say after Christmas. You know, that kind of week of Christmas, then New Year's, everyone kind of just has like lazy time. You eat a lot, you eat loads of leftovers, you just have like the biggest chill. And I love that week. That's my favourite week of the year, the last week of the year. And then January 1st hits and everyone's like, New Year's resolution, go to the gym, juice detox, dry January. And it's just all this kind of like, why? And I hate that people post that everywhere. Like, good on them, and some people like that, some people like the motivation from other people, but for a lot of people that is triggering. If they're like, no, you need to get back to the gym, you need to lose those 10 pounds you gained over winter, over Christmas, whatever, it's not helpful for a lot of people. I get it might motivate some people, but for the most part it's very triggering. And I do hate that the whole world now is just trigger after another trigger. But you know, like, you've got to be careful with what you say online, and that's why I do kind of take I kind of hope that you take what I say with a pinch of salt, because I'm not a licensed professional, and even if I was, doesn't mean you have to listen to what I say. These are just my opinions, so I do really appreciate you listening to them and taking the time out your day to listen to me rant about random things. But yeah, and I'm going to kind of end this here because I think I've said what I needed to say rather than going on many tangents like usual, and I've already gone on a few. But Christmas is a fun time, so try and rewire your brain to think that. And if you struggle, remember it's okay. You have time. Recovery takes a long time, and that is scary in itself. But just remember that you're doing way better than you probably think you are. And if you woke up this morning, you got out of bed, you got ready, that's a goal in itself. You've done something. So remember, don't be so hard on yourself and try and enjoy this festive time. Because it's the end of the year, and 2024 is going to bring so many better things for you. So yeah, I will speak to you very soon, and have a great Christmas, because I won't be posting one until after Christmas now. So have a great Christmas, and I'll speak to you soon.